So in this clip, we're going to see Republican and former Donald Trump supporter, I believe her name is Nora Lee Knotson, something along those lines. We're going to see her systematically dismantle Donald Trump's Iran war decision. We're going to see her attack Pete Hegseth and really say some pretty scathing things about Donald Trump himself. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
As a Republican who voted for Trump, on his platform of no new wars, putting America first, I did not agree with this war. It was not self-defense. There was no imminent threat. You even had Joe Kent resign over the issue. You had Marco Rubio came out and said the imminent threat was that Benjamin Netanyahu told the U.S. they were going to strike Iran, and as a result, Iran would strike the U.S. So you would think the real issue would be that President Trump should have convinced Benjamin Netanyahu not to strike Iran. We know for 30 years Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying Iran is 2 weeks away from having a nuclear bomb. They do not have a nuclear bomb. And Europe has been united in their criticism of this war, that it was a war of choice. The problems that have been created, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, was created by President Trump. And so he broke it, he should fix it, and rightly so, they want to stay out. We've seen the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, come out and say that this, again, was a war of choice, it's an illegal war, and that NATO has to operate within the framework of international law.
So you're a Republican who is saying that Keir Starmer's position, to give limited access to British bases for defensive operations is the right way to have gone about it, not to get more involved in this?
I agree. I think that is the right thing, the right stance, because there was no attack by Iran against a NATO member. The only time Article 5 has been invoked was after 9/11. And as we know, after going in on the Iraq war, it was an illegal war. There were no weapons of mass destruction. And we all still feel the pain of that war with the mass immigration crisis, the creation of ISIS. It's created more problems. And what Trump has done feels like political suicide. He was advised by General Kane not to go in because they would close the Strait of Hormuz. But he believed that they would capitulate in Iran. Wrongly so. And now we're paying the price. We see the desperation in the administration, the way they're attacking NATO members, the way they're threatening them. If they were strong and winning this war, they wouldn't resort to such measures. So we need to get a deal done. It's going to take 6 years, is what they're saying, to replenish the munitions in the U.S. We can't afford to have a drawn-out war. We need the ceasefire to continue, but we also need to strike a deal.
So as someone who voted for Trump, how angry are you that through this war, he has shown the Iranian regime they had a strength that they perhaps didn't fully realize until the war happened, the Strait, and he's shown the rest of the world, including your Chinese friends, what the limitations of American military power are?
I think it's been disastrous. And I think Trump knows it as well, which is why we see this erratic behavior from him, very much like a child throwing the toys out of the pram, because he knows it's an absolute mess. And the best thing that they can do is try to save face and, tweet that, yes, you are winning and, oh, it's going to be our terms and we're going to get our terms. But, silently behind the scenes, negotiate something like one of your previous guests was saying, we have to meet Iran halfway. What does Iran need? They need us to lift sanctions. They need to have some economic prosperity. The reason why you had protests in Iran is because you had massive inflation. If people can't feed themselves, can't take care of themselves, of course you're going to have problems. So there are economic levers that the U.S. has available. And you heard that Europe was speaking about it as well. Once there is progress and a commitment to a deal, that they are talking about lifting sanctions on Iran. And I think that's the way we have to start thinking right now to get the Strait of Hormuz off the table so that Iran doesn't want to charge a toll. And I agree that would be a terrible precedent to set. But we have to think about a real solution.
I mean, whenever America started a war of choice, arguably since the Second World War, which was a different kind of choice, it's gone badly for them, whether it was Vietnam
right.
or whether it was Iraq,
right.
and now Iran.
Right.
So could this be, to mix my historical metaphors, could this be not just another Vietnam, but America's Suez moment? The Suez moment for us in Britain in 1956 was when we realized, left out to dry by the Americans, the limitations of our imperial, post-imperial power. Is this what is happening to you now?
I think it would be great if there's somebody that could get Trump on side to change course. But we know Trump is very concerned about perception and his perception, and he doesn't like to be wrong. But you're seeing it within the military as well, with Pete Hegseth. Massive dissent. Why do you think more than a dozen people, high-ranking officials, have been fired? Because they don't agree. And this is only going to get worse.
What do you make of the fact that you have a Christian nationalist with some very questionable tattoos, and a man who in his confirmation hearing said more or less, don't worry about me, I can deal with my drink problem, in charge of the world's mightiest military?
I think it's very concerning. If you see 2/3 of Americans don't approve of the war, 3/4 of Americans don't approve of how the administration is even handling the war. Forget about not agreeing with it, handling the war and handling the economy. Pete Hegseth, I don't believe, garners a lot of respect.
Right. That's putting it mildly, I think. Certainly the people I've spoken to in uniform, they're outraged by him. But none of this should come as a surprise. Why was this guy confirmed at all by the Senate?
I agree. That's a very good question to ask. We know that Trump cares about looks, perception. He likes to put people in place that he thinks look good, that he thinks speak well, but I don't think Pete Hegseth particularly speaks very well. If you listen to the last things he said about, the Europeans should be getting on a boat, and stop their fancy meetings, that's not a way to speak. We need diplomacy right now.
But is America, with a combination of either insufficient diplomacy from people who are frankly amateurs, like the duo that have just headed back to Islamabad, or Pete Hegseth, who shoots his mouth off, or indeed the president, and we discussed the madman theory earlier in the program, make of that what you will. Is America just, with one thing after another, undermining its biggest asset, which was trust?
I think you raise a very good point. Trust is priceless, and once you lose it, it's hard to get it back. But we have to remember that the U.S. has survived a lot of crises throughout the years, and we will come back. If anything, this is going to change leadership in the future and who Americans place their trust in going forward. But Americans for the whole, do not support this and do not support the administration betraying their promise to the U.S.
Again, getting back to the campaign, the presidential campaign of 2024, these are all things that did come up, right? These are all things that Democrats warned us about, and some Republicans, the never-Trumpers, on the Republican side.
Right.
So do you feel any regret that you cast your vote for a man who is now, in your book, what you just told me, has done so much damage to America's power and image around the world?
Well, to go back to your point, if you look at J.D. Vance as vice president, he was somebody as well staunchly against war. So there was no reason to believe that the administration would betray that promise. I think what happened is Trump started to overplay his hand. Last summer, the attack in June, it was a huge success. I didn't agree with that.
Venezuela?
I didn't agree with that attack either. Venezuela. And like a gambler, you're winning at the table. He thinks he's going to go all out. He's going to look like a hero, change the regime. I think Benjamin Netanyahu played a big part in convincing him that they could do that together, despite the fact that there were massive risks attached to it. And he overplayed his hand. He's made a mistake, and he needs to find a way out quickly. That's the best thing that he can do right now.
Is there anyone around the cabinet table or in the White House who has the cojones, and I won't translate that word.
The cojones, I know that word very well.
You know what that means, right? Who has those to tell him that he's gone wrong?
That's a very good question. And I think most people are scared of Trump.
Including his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who's been with him, for quite a long time, knows him well, he trusts her.
I think she's probably 100% for this war.
Right.
And Trump's going around, if you read some of his recent tweets going around saying, oh, there'll be a nuclear holocaust for Europe. You're close to Iran. If we don't deal with this, it's going to be the end of... He's trying to make people fearful. So now you have to have this cognitive dissonance where you buy into the lie.
So finally, if you were advising our king, who's flying to Washington tomorrow, and we've been talking about this a lot this morning. Again, you talk to British politicians, they say he should tread carefully, the special relationship, yada, yada, yada. What would you advise our king to say that both saves our dignity, the dignity of the crown, and also tells a supposedly good friend where they've gone wrong?
I think it's a very important moment for the king, and I think it's wonderful that there's this opportunity for him to be there and smooth things out. I think he has to remind Trump of the strong relationship. We fought together in World War I. We fought together in World War II. He has to flatter him about positive things he's done, but he has to hark back to the days when Queen Elizabeth II addressed Congress in 91, and she talked about the fact that most people think there's strength at the end of the barrel, but in fact, it's through diplomacy that we have prosperity, and we have to hark back to the fundamentals of democracy. And he needs to do it in a way with elegance that I think he will accomplish.
So I very rarely see Republicans, MAGA, attack Donald Trump himself and Pete Hegseth in that sort of manner, unless or until Donald Trump first and foremost attacks them. So it's actually good to see Nora Lee Knudsen, I believe that's how you say her name anyway. It's actually good to see her come out and attack Donald Trump the way that it is that she did. But what the problem for me is this. If she was given the opportunity and she had a choice between voting for Donald Trump and Harris once again, we know exactly who it is that she'd turn around and vote for. We know exactly who she'd turn around and vote for. She'd turn around and she would vote for Donald Trump again. And this is the problem with these MAGA lot. This is the problem. We heard Megyn Kelly come out on her podcast and say it the other day. She'd still vote for Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump has been absolutely dragging her through the dirt. She came out and she said, I would still vote for Donald Trump. I always say, with these guys, it's an abusive relationship. These people still don't understand that. Guess what? Donald Trump only likes you if you serve him, if you're of purpose to him. The moment you are no longer of purpose to him, he washes his hands with you and he's not interested. This is what the problem is with these guys. They don't understand it, but they just genuinely do believe, and they drink the Kool-Aid and they believe what the cult leader Donald Trump says. This guy has been a fraud for years, probably even his whole entire life. The guy has been a fraud. And many people within the Republican Party are only now starting to wake up and realize, you know what? He actually did do us over and he did lie. Only now they're starting to realize it. But people like me, people like you, we've noticed this for years. We've known it. It's been so easy to see. It's out in plain sight that this guy is a charlatan and a liar and a fraud. And all of these Americans that are literally struggling right now, that are on their back, finding it hard, while Donald Trump and his family profit off of the presidency, making billions and millions of dollars as a result of the presidency. But these guys will say absolutely nothing about it. No shock, no surprise. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Nora Lee Knudsen and the things that it is that she had to say. Let me know that in the comment section below. Especially what it is that she had to say about Pete Hegseth. Let me know in the comment section below. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification, and give the video a thumbs up. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys, as always, in the next clip. When will Republicans start to realize Donald Trump doesn't like them. He tolerates them until he's done with them.